All right, it's 1 minute past 12. I suggest that we start this session on virtual exchange in the University of Groningen. My name is Jager. I'm a project manager in teaching and learning innovation at the University of Groningen. And I'm here today with Cristina, Pascual, Aibar, and Gerdientje Oggel, and Petra, Broomans, and May Wu, who are teachers at the university and who've been using virtual exchange for quite a while now. Today we will be presenting some of the projects that we've been engaged in during the past couple of years. And our presentation consists of 3 parts. So first I will be talking a little bit about virtual exchange in general, some of the ideas that have guided our thinking in this area. And then we will have 2 presentations by the teachers from these respective courses. It should take around 45 minutes, and you are invited to ask questions. The questions can be asked through the chat, and then we will address these questions at the end of the session. You do not have, at the moment, you do not have access to the microphone, but at the end, we may invite you to ask your question by talking to the audience using your microphone. So I hope that everything is clear and that we are ready to start this session. I will just check the chat to see who's here. All right, we have around 100 participants now. So it's time to start. Here's a timeline of the virtual exchange projects in the University of Groningen. In fact, when we started with virtual exchange about 10 years ago, the practice went by a completely different name. It was known as telecollaboration, and this is probably a term that you have also heard. We started experimenting with this, particularly in the languages. And this was in the period between 2010 and 11, when we did some pilots for Spanish and English. And then in 2014 and 2016, we continued working in languages, but more in languages and culture in the context of the newly formed European Languages and Cultures program at the University of Groningen. But then in 2017, we decided it was time to take virtual exchange beyond languages, because as you will see in a minute, virtual exchange fits very well with languages and cultures, but it isn't necessarily known very well in other disciplines. So in 2017, we started a project called the ENVOIE project. And we used the acronym OIE, which stands for Online International Exchange, rather than the more usual Online Intercultural Exchange, because we thought it was more about the international. It was not solely about intercultural, it was also about interaction between disciplines at the international level, where the disciplinary knowledge was also important. This project, this ENVOIE project, was very successful. We managed to include 11 different disciplines in 6 different faculties in the Faculty of Arts in the University of Groningen. And then in 2018, we took this cross-disciplinary form of virtual exchange to the European level when we started a large European project, which was called ENVOIE, which helped us to establish virtual exchange in many universities across Europe. And this project taught us quite a lot about how to implement virtual exchange, how to provide training and how to provide support, and also how virtual exchange can contribute to developing these competencies, these key competencies that we want our students to attain in higher education. And so now we're back at ENVOIE, which we call ENVOIE 2, but it's still a bit uncertain in which disciplines we will be implementing ENVOIE 2, because we're also looking at ENLIGHT as one of the areas where we would like to initiate new projects of the type that we will be showing today. So Our second presentation today is actually from the second phase of the ENVOIE project. And the first, that's the presentation by Cristina and Gerdientje. And the other presentation is by Petra, Broomans, and Mei Wu. And that dates from an earlier period, but it is still running. But before talking about or showing these projects, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what we mean by virtual exchange. Because if there's anything which the current corona crisis has driven home, then it is that teaching and learning is all about connecting people. This is the essence of virtual exchange, or COIL, as it is also sometimes called, for instance, in the US. And it explains why so many institutions today are now trying to implement virtual exchange in one way or another. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it really is and how it works. And so that's why we have created this video, this short video, 3-minute video, in the context of the EVOLVE project, which I'd like to show to you first.
As teachers, we want our students to be able to grow within a complex and rapidly changing world. How can we help them to achieve the best employment opportunities while developing themselves as human beings who are respectful of others? Research has identified a set of competencies which are key to reaching these important goals. These are being able to collaborate with others, being able to communicate in different languages with people from other cultural backgrounds, and being able to use digital technologies efficiently. How can we help our students develop all these skills? Virtual exchange is a teaching and learning practice that precisely addresses these key competencies. In virtual exchange, learners in different countries or cultural backgrounds connect through digital technologies and work together online, in pairs or small groups, on learning tasks developed by their teachers. What does a virtual exchange look like? First, the teachers on each side collaborate to design the virtual exchange. Together, they match calendars and design online activities intended to help students achieve the learning goals of their courses. In their respective classes, the teachers prepare students for the virtual exchange. Each class is split into smaller working groups which are paired with a group from the other university. In these smaller groups, they prepare to start working together on the project. Starting with an icebreaker activity, the students get to know each other and establish a meaningful relationship that will enable them to work towards a common goal during the virtual exchange. In this first activity, students also get familiar with the digital tool or tools they'll be using. After each online activity, the students in each group can share their experiences with their own classmates and reflect on the process. The teacher or facilitator supervises the students' progress and make sure the international collaboration is going smoothly. During the following online encounters, the students continue collaborating autonomously towards the completion of the final task with some degree of supervision from the teacher. Depending on the course discipline and learning goals, this final task can have multiple forms and contents. Medical science students writing a joint essay comparing how patients are attended in the two countries. Or Mexican and English students who are learning each other's languages create a video inviting others to visit their city. Or students of web design in one class, together with students from business in the other class, create a website for a company together. The possibilities are endless. Project, students share the outcomes of their work and reflect upon what they've learned. Now that you have a better idea of what virtual exchange entails, imagine what it would look like in your course.
So virtual exchange, actually also in the form in which we will be presenting it today, is all about students working together on challenges or tasks developed by their teachers. And these may be teachers from completely different disciplines. And that is also one of the strengths of virtual exchange. So in fact, what we wanted to do also with this short video is to emphasize that it can actually be implemented across disciplines and not necessarily only in languages where it is already very well known. In fact, it is one of the forms of internationalization. In fact, one of the researchers very active in the field of internationalization, a Dutch researcher called Hans de Wit, actually once said about virtual exchange, or COIL as he calls it, that it combines the 4 essential dimensions of real virtual mobility. It is collaborative, and I really think that that is the strongest element of it. It is a collaborative exercise of teachers and students. It makes use of online technology and interaction. It has potential international dimensions. This also means it may be applied also maybe in the institution itself. And it is integrated into the learning process. And COIL is one of the options which many universities are now using for internationalizing the curriculum. It resonates very well with universities' ambition to give all students, so not only the students who are lucky enough to have access to mobility, to give all students international and intercultural experiences. This is because global competencies are regarded as essential for many, if not all students in universities today. And so universities have long realized that there are limitations to physical mobility. At the moment, less than 10% of students have access to mobility in Europe. And it is very privileged access. And although some teachers believe that sorry, I've just lost track there. So it is privileged access for in Europe. And what is also very important is that it is currently very much linked to environmental issues to do with mobility. So internationalization at home has a lot to do with integration in the curriculum. It is about integrating internationalization at the level of learning outcomes, of activities or tasks that students do, and assessment. It is sometimes thought, particularly by key stakeholders, as we have found through our studies, that the virtual exchange provides only a second best alternative to physical mobility. And we do not present virtual exchange as a replacement of physical mobility. In fact, we regard it very much as a complement to, for instance, short-stay mobility. Our research in the ENVOIE project has, for instance, shown convincingly that virtual exchange can have a very strong impact on developing these intercultural skills and the digital skills and language skills for students, and that it combines disciplinary skills with so-called transversal and soft skills, and that it also contributes very strongly to teacher developing digital competence and also new pedagogical approaches. What is also very important is that virtual exchange aligns very well with current higher education topics. And these include, of course, as I've said already, giving all students an international experience, but also creating a smaller ecological footprint of mobility and giving more equity and diversity and inclusiveness to the learning arrangements that they provide. In general, virtual exchange fits very well with universities' ambitions of working towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So what do we see as the potential of virtual exchange in the context of ENLIGHT? Well, in the context of the project that we are kicking off this week, I think that it is very important that within ENLIGHT, we have these opportunities for co-creation by teachers from these partner institutions. And we also have, the teachers can define problems maybe in these main focus areas, challenges where students from different disciplines work together. And we can also provide joint training and support, because what is very important is that the training has to be provided to the teachers at both ends. And so this the institutions together. There are also opportunities for partner finding, and also for implementing micro-credentials, which we have already done in the context of ENVOIE, but also in the context of the Erasmus Virtual Exchange project. And finally, I think it's also important to acknowledge that virtual exchange also provides new possibilities for research and being implemented also in research courses. So on these introductory notes, I hand over to Gerdientje and Cristina, who will now present to you their project, which they ran with the University of Valencia. So I will stop sharing the screen and ask Gerdientje to share her screen now. I hope that works.
Thank you, Sake, for this informative introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here and giving us the opportunity to present you the virtual exchange that we carry on with the University of Valencia. We have divided our presentation, as you can see, in what here you have 6 parts, but we divided in 4 main parts. First of all, my colleague Gerdientje will talk about how we established the relationship with the colleagues of Valencia and the process of designing the virtual exchange and the profile of the students that these projects addressed. After that, I will briefly explain about the, and describe what the project was about. I will talk about its integration in the different courses, the tools that we use, the different tasks that the student completed. And as all learning processes, we will move forward to the evaluation of the project from the student's perspective. For that, Laura and Adrian, 2 of our students, will have the chance of sharing their experiences with us. And finally, I will finish discussing some changes that can be implemented to improve and repeat the virtual exchange. So now, Gerdientje, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Cristina, for introducing our presentation. Oh, this is not, I'm sorry, I have to, yes. Okay, you see my slides, yes. Okay, so our VE took place between teachers and students from the University of Groningen and the University of Valencia. And although there exists a Erasmus Plus agreement between our universities, the contact between the teachers was actually established via the ENVOIE network. And the initiative was taken by the University of Valencia teachers, Mariana Gedes Monceres y Berta Chilwi, who are teachers of social psychology. They felt they needed to look for an international collaboration to give their students the opportunity to explore social issues concerning student life around the pandemic across cultures. And they sent round their proposal for a virtual exchange through Robert O'Dowd, who is a renowned scholar in the field and who was also a member of the ENVOIE project. We at the EDU, several teachers of Spanish Proficiency, were looking for a virtual exchange as an alternative to physical mobility due to travel restrictions implemented as a result of the pandemic. So the general benefits we see, as Sake already pointed out, we see as a result of virtual exchange, shows us that it helps students to develop a set of transversal skills. These transversal skills are also referred to as core skills, basic skills, or soft skills, and are the cornerstone for the personal and professional development of a person needed for employability in our globalized societies. Amongst these skills are international skills, such as foreign language competence, intercultural competence, digital skills, but also collaboration and personal skills, such as self-esteem, self-management, and group work. So normally, a virtual exchange is integrated in existing courses at both universities for the duration of these courses. These courses can either be from the same discipline, but also from different disciplines. In our case, the courses were from different disciplines, and the VE was therefore also interdisciplinary. At the University of Groningen side, the course was integrated in 3 Spanish Proficiency courses at different levels, and there were 67 students involved. The VE was also offered as an alternative or a complement to the minor abroad, and it was conducted in the fall semester of last semester. Students were second and third year students in the BA degree program European Languages and Cultures and International Relations and Organizations. As for the University of Valencia, there were 71 students involved. Their course was a social psychology course, also conducted in the fall semester, last semester. These were first year students in the sociology, psychology, and social work BA degree programs. As for the language, the University of Groningen students have English or Dutch as their mother tongue, but they are learners of Spanish as a foreign language. At the Valencian part, students have Valencian or English as their the language they use in their institution, and Valencian and Spanish as a mother tongue. About the project design. Since the VE is integrated in an existing course at both institutions, the teachers involved not only need to agree on the common goal which students are about to achieve collaboratively, working together during the VE, but they also need to make sure that the VE project meets the specific learning outcomes of the two courses and disciplines, in this case, in which the VE is integrated. In other words, the students from the one university build upon the expertise of the students of the other university and the other way around, in order to be able to achieve the common goal set for the virtual exchange. Next to that, it's of course important that academic calendars match and that the VE is integrated fully in a similar way into the syllabi of both courses. In terms of tasks, reflections on these tasks, workload, credits, and assessments. In our case, the common goal to be reached by students as a result of the VE was to discuss and compare student experiences arising from the pandemic and to select the main social issues coming from it. The specific learning goal for the University of Valencia students was to research these social issues across cultures using social theories. The specific learning goal for the University of Groningen students was to develop communication skills in Spanish and intercultural skills with natives around social issues coming from the pandemic across these two cultures. I will now give the floor again to my colleague Cristina, who was a teacher in one of the Spanish Proficiency courses and who will talk about the project design.
Thank you, Gerdientje. So as you can see in the title of our virtual exchange, the new normality, an interdisciplinary virtual exchange in times of COVID-19, our main goal was that students from different countries share their experiences with this new normal in their respective national contexts. And they have to select a problem that they thought that it was of utmost important in this time of pandemic. So the idea, as it has been mentioned before, it was to promote intercultural knowledge and to understand to what extent this mutual problem affects different contexts. Also, why they matched the specific course goals that they have to achieve in the specific courses. So how was this project integrated in our courses? Well, here at the University of Groningen, our students of Spanish are required to complete at least 6 hours of oral interaction with native or non-native speakers, and they need to reflect on. So this virtual exchange was part of this oral portfolio. Another compulsory activity is a debate in which a student discuss a topic. So this was also part of this debate that they carry on in class. For the students in Valencia, as Gerdientje mentioned, it was more an action research activity because they collected the opinions, the different perspectives of the students, and after that, once they selected a problem, they will apply different social, psychological theories to solve this problem. So All the main communication was carried out via the Moodle of the University of Valencia, the Aula Virtual. Here, a specific course was created and they received an email with the contact information of the other student members of the team. After that, they have to establish contact within themselves, and in their first meeting, they sign a team agreement in which it is said the time and dates that they are going to meet, and also they decide the tool or tools that they prefer to use. Although a Blackboard collaborate room was available for each team. So the three main issues that they had to discuss in these meetings was, these are the three main topics. So for example, the other as a source of danger. So we give the student questions to debate. So do we consider others as a source of danger? Are young people criminalized or blamed for infecting the others? Or do we avoid interacting with certain types of group of people? Or then the other topic was the social distancing and the mask. Have social distancing and the use of masks changed the perspective of people, or do they make communication difficult to certain group of people, like for example, deaf people or blind people? And the last one is related to follow and object to the rules. So which preventive measures do we follow and which one do not? Why do we choose to follow or object to the rules? So, and I wanted to point it out that for the University of Groningen students, we provided them with newspaper articles in Spanish and related to this topic to make sure that they could prepare the topic and the terminology beforehand in order to be able to participate in this conversation with the student of Valencia. There were 6 main sessions. So the first one was dedicated as to breaking the ice and getting to know each other. And the following 3 sessions were allotted to the discussion of the 3 main issues that I before explained to you. And the 5th one focused on the selection of the problem. Also, there was a break between this session and the last one due to the exam period. Nevertheless, our students from Groningen shared in this debate or tertulia, as I explained, with the classmate, they share what they have been discussing with the student of Valencia. And they received feedback that later in this last session, in the 5th session, was shared with the group members, and they, at the end, they say goodbye and evaluate the project. And now I give the floor to Gerdientje, who will explain a little bit more about the evaluation, and also to Adriana and Laura.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Cristina. Well, in order to collect the opinions of our students on the virtual exchange, we conducted 2 types of evaluations. In the first place, at the University of Groningen, in our evaluations of the Spanish courses, we asked our students 2 additional questions about the virtual exchange, one on their preparation and participation in the VE, and one on the development of the specific learning outcomes of the course, in our case, foreign language skills and intercultural skills related to social issues coming from the pandemic. The response rate to the Google Forms survey was generally high, in between 40% and 80% in the different courses. Next to that, we also conducted the pre- and post-test surveys developed by the ENVOIE research team to measure the general perception and appreciation of the virtual exchange by all students involved, and the development of disciplinary skills and general VE skills. Unfortunately, the response rate for these surveys was significantly lower to conduct the statistical analysis. So, as mentioned before, instead of showing you the preliminary results of the surveys, we invited 2 of our UG students who participated in the exchange to share their perspectives with us. And these students are Adriaan Walen, who's a second-year student of European Languages and Cultures. He's majoring in Spanish and European politics as his discipline. And during the VE, he was enrolled in Spanish in one of our Spanish Proficiency courses. Furthermore, he plans to do a minor abroad in Spain in the fall semester of the next academic year. And we also have with us Laura Isca, who's a third-year student of European Languages and Cultures. She is also majoring in Spanish, but European linguistics as the discipline. And she took the virtual exchange as a complement to her physical minor abroad. She actually went abroad last semester to Valencia. She studied at the University of Valencia for the whole semester. So thank you very much for being here. First of all, Adriaan and Laura. We have 3 questions for you, which are similar to the questions we also asked in the surveys to all students. So let me first ask Adriaan, what is your general perception of the virtual exchange? Your general perception, but also how do you see the virtual exchange as a preparation for your upcoming stay abroad, if the pandemic allows you to go physically to Spain? Second question, how do you rate your preparation and participation in the virtual exchange? And do you think you developed indeed those core skills, language skills in Spanish, communication skills, intercultural skills, and maybe even also you can think about your political profile and say something about that related to the pandemic. So please, Adriaan.
Yeah. All right. So in general, the virtual exchange worked very well for me. I think it's a really useful and educative initiative. And I also think that with the COVID situation, we had a lot to talk about. And it was interesting to discover their views on the matter, the views of the Spanish students, which was sometimes quite different and sometimes quite similar to our views. So what I did in terms of preparation was go through the materials for that week and respond to the questions. Although I did not write them down fully because I wanted to add a sense of spontaneity to the conversation. But I do think that the material we had to cover was sometimes a little bit limited. And so the interaction was sometimes a little bit awkward maybe, because my abilities in terms of speaking spontaneously in Spanish are limited. And the Spanish students, in my group at least, sometimes didn't know what to say either at times, which is normal, of course. So if there would have been a bit more material to cover and information to talk about, the conversation would have been more enjoyable, I think. But I have to say, as the weeks went on and we got to know each other a bit better, the conversations got more and more smooth. And I gotta say, given the number of hours we were able to talk to the Spanish students, I learned a lot from the conversations. Because not only were we talking to native Spanish speakers, they were also from the same age, which is a huge plus in my opinion. And in the 4 to 5 hours we spoke, you cannot possibly make astronomical progress, but I think we made the most of it. And I see it as a great preparation for my stay abroad next study year. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for your detailed explanation. So now let's hear Laura. How did you experience virtual exchange?
Well, for me, it was more or less the same as Adriaan. Overall, it was really great. It was interesting to talk to native speakers and to hear about their points of views and opinions about the COVID situation and how they experienced everything. And it also allowed me to talk to people from a different culture, in this case, of course, Spanish culture. And it was also nice that we were able to communicate without actually having to be in the same room together. And this is, of course, also very COVID friendly. And I was studying in Valencia, and it was nice to speak to those who also study there and live there, and to learn more about their values and attitudes, not just in the COVID situation, but also more general things. And unfortunately, we didn't feel comfortable enough to meet in person because of the COVID situation, but it was nice having that contact person, knowing that you can always contact them And we had a group chat together, and that was nice. We spoke in Spanish in there, so that was very helpful for my Spanish skills. And yeah, we also prepared our questions in advance. I did write my answers down, but there was a lot of interaction. We also asked each other following up questions, so that was very nice. So I had a very talkative group. I think that helped, not a lot of awkward silences or anything. And we were very interested in how things were different, but also things that were similar. And yeah, we talked a lot about those things as well. And yeah, just in general, it's nice to having, you know, this opportunity to talk to them and learn more about their cultures and about the difference and the similarities, and to improve my Spanish communicative skills, of course. That was also very nice.
Yes, thank you very much, Laura. Well, we don't have much time to do some follow-up questions, but Cristina will also discuss some of the things we can improve in the project. So this will we see later. I just wanted to show you briefly 3 slides where you can see how students generally appreciated the participation in the virtual exchange. This was from the ENVOIE Post survey. As you see, the majority of students is really happy with their participation in the exchange. We also have here the results of the evaluation we conducted in our Spanish courses. Well, students say, like Adrian and Laura, that they think they prepared and participated well in the exchanges in all courses where the virtual exchange was inducted at the University of Groningen. And they also agree with the statement that they think that the virtual exchange indeed helped them to develop their intercultural skills and language competencies. Well, we have the results for the University of Valencia students as well, but I'm not going to show them, but I do wanted to briefly point out what the students said in relation to the disciplinary learning and intercultural learning. So if we have a brief look at the comments given by students on these questions, we see that they often link the issues which arose from the pandemic to their discipline. For example, UG students state that they learned a lot about daily life in Spain with regard to the pandemic, and that they learned a lot of vocabulary on the topic, which helped them to communicate better about the different situation in the 2 countries during the pandemic. UV students state that listening to and understanding the specific situation around the pandemic in the other country helped them to practice them how to be a good listener, which is a crucial competence for social psychology. They also mentioned that they saw similarities, like Adrian and Laura, in the way young people from different cultures think about the pandemic and how this gave them perspective on the problems we have to deal with nowadays. So it's very interesting to see that these comments are actually similar to the results we also saw in our ENVOIE research on the impact of virtual exchange on students' disciplinary learning, which found that there's a connection, as Saka pointed out, between disciplinary learning and transversal learning, which shows that VE can indeed be a powerful tool to establish cross-cultural and cross-disciplinary perspectives and promote critical thinking and deep learning on global problems and challenges, such as the pandemic, or, well, those United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we also think that this is particularly interesting for Enlight, since it seeks to empower learners as globally engaged citizens who know how global thinking and interaction can help us find adequate solutions to local issues. Well, for the very last slide, I'm now handing over to Cristina again, who will talk about how to repeat and improve the project.
Yeah, of course, there is still a lot to improve when we repeat the project. Some of the improvement we would propose based on the students' evaluation, and you can find here. So they complain that there was too much reflection. So each time that they have to, they had a conversation, they have to reflect on this. So they were complaining about that. And they were asking for more in-class follow-up with the teachers. So, well, this is a summary of some of the topics. Also, how to continue it. So now that COVID is almost done, but how it's going to affect in the future. So this is how is going to be a bridge between certain social classes. So for example, education, are the students going to notice the effects of COVID in the education? So these are more topics that we can continue working and implementing in our next virtual. There's not much time, so I will give the turn to Petra for the next presentation.
My screen so that Petra can share hers.
Okay, so thank you very much, Gerdientje and Cristina. So Petra Broomans, who is also from European Languages and Cultures, but from a completely different discipline, will now present together with Mei Wu. I hope that works. We have a few questions in the chat, so while Petra gets started, I hope it works for you, Petra. You can already start sharing your screen.
Yes.
Okay. There was one question by Fabian about how do you keep everyone active? Do you use breakout groups? Well, actually, all the work between students, and that was also the idea of the video, takes place outside class. So they do a project. So they have to really develop themselves, stick to time. And we find that this is also what students find, what they learn from these projects. It is good for their personal development because they learn timekeeping is what they mention quite often, to stick to certain rules, but also to learn about differences between countries in that respect. So that is already a brief answer to one of these questions. So Petra, please continue. We're running a little bit behind.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Gerdientje, Cristina, and the students for this nice interactive presentation. Due to the time is left, I will skip the introduction and start right away. Why world literature, translations, and cultural transfer? Besides the three scholarly reasons mentioned in this slide, there's also practical and societal reason. The involved staff members at the three universities have complementary skills and expertise, and the topics are very suitable for a better understanding of cultural differences. We work together with translation studies at the Sisson University. In Groningen, we have the skills on cultural transfer studies, and in Uppsala, world literature. Groningen and Uppsala work together for many years, so there is an overlap of skills and expertise. It will be good though to have Swedish students in the project next year because the students in Groningen have Swedish as their major. Since
the sound is interrupted sometimes, Petra. So yeah, so we have, when it happens again, I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, yes. Okay. Well, I think this screen speaks for itself, departments and staff. I would like to add that it was also very helpful in these years to have engaged assistants, since me from Euroculture, and the trainee evaluated the first 2 years of the project. The goals of the project, well, the preparation is very important. The assignments should be the same, the readings, primary and secondary text as well. We sent our own learning outcomes to each other, but respected the respective university rules. We also use the same assessment. The grading differs, of course. Each partner was evaluating their own students. And we had also some ice-breaking pre-assignments to form the student groups. May will present some other important preparations.
Thank you, Petra. The second phase of preparation, we mainly focused on 3 aspects, starting with participants' motivation. Motivating participants is crucial because many of them don't, know little about what they can get from virtual exchange other than just linguistic skills. And what is interesting and fun about virtual exchange, we provided several articles and shared the experience of previous students with them, which made the project much more clearer to them. The second part is designing the collaborative tasks, making sure the tasks were in line with the virtual exchange rules and the course contents. We start with ice-breaking task and then getting to know the group task before moving to content-focused collaborative tasks. The last is to find tools that are available for all participants. Things Google products, Blackboard, and many other popular apps in the West are unfortunately not available in mainland China. After testing a number of apps, we chose Padlet and Edmodo for teacher-student interaction on tasks and recommended Volve Meeting for in-group communication. The next slide shows you which tools we used. Yes, the teacher-student interaction platforms worked as we planned, but the students were surprisingly creative about which tool they used to communicate with their peers. They used WhatsApp, Skype, Google Meet, WeChat to collaborate on their tasks, even though we thought they're banned in China. Yeah, in next, Professor Petra Broomans will show you how Padlet and Edmo work in the project.
Yeah, thank you, May. Yeah, these slides show examples of this Padlet. This Padlet tool is very useful for ice-breaking. As May said, everyone, both students and assistant and staff, gave a short introduction about themselves, about the books they like, and Harry Potter turned out to be very favorite in all the countries. If they like to travel, the food they like. And it is really fun to see how they reacted to each other, and also that young people all over the world share the same interests and dreams. It was a very good way to match the groups. In Edmodo, this is an e-learning platform. All the material was uploaded, the text, the assignments. There was also room to make comments, etc., etc. And in Edmodo, the students had also to upload their group presentations. But before that, they needed to work together. May already mentioned the tools the students used. Well, I show you briefly the learning goals for the students. The slide shows that the learning goals are course content related, knowledge about world literature, cultural transfer, and translation, but also related to skills such as intercultural communication skills. The assignments show this also very clear. Students had to discuss theories on world literature, but also work together in analyzing a poem. The students in Groningen as well as in Uppsala in the first year had to use their language skills in Swedish in order to explain cultural aspects in the Swedish poem for their Chinese group members. And on the other hand, the Chinese students had to use their translation skills to explain the solutions the Chinese translator made when translating the poem in Chinese. May will tell about Chinese experience.
Yeah, the reflections from Chinese learners are overall very positive. They highlighted that the discussions with their international peers largely deepened their understanding on what is world literature and other aspects of their subject content. The collaboration enhanced their cultural communicative competence. It is interesting that they perceive the culture gaps and the culture shocks as great chances for opening new windows for their life. The differences between cultures seem to be very inspiring for them. The Chinese learners also noted that their language ability was also improved because the lingua franca used in this project is English, which is their target language. Another benefit they mentioned was the improvement of e-literacy because they were very actively finding Web 2.0 tools that they like. Also, several learners suggested that they became more motivated to learn the subject and to improve English, and their horizons were expanded as well as their social networks. They made several suggestions, mainly concentrated on getting more chances of communication and getting more feedbacks from the teachers. They are eager to have more contact within larger groups, and they wish to have more detailed feedback on their assignments. We also noticed that the examples from previous years about their assignments are desired by the participants.
Well, the European experience, the evaluations of the students in Groningen show more or less the same experiences. The students learned a lot about cultural differences and also about their own intercultural classroom. Last year, 2 students from Romania were studying Swedish in Groningen, and the previous years we had students from England and Germany. So in general, they got inspired by other students and learned a lot about other literatures and got better insights in the function of cultural transfer. Okay, May, go ahead about use tools.
The students used very different communication tools, as we mentioned before, including ENVOIE, Zoom, Messenger, WeChat, WhatsApp, Google Meet, email, and Skype. They helped each other in finding the best tool. The only problem is still the time difference between China and Europe. This was also the case in the previous virtual exchange courses. Students wrote that the organization went very smoothly. Some students needed more guidance than others and recommended more guidance, especially regarding on task 4 and task 5, which are more complicated. Some students asked also for more feedback from the teachers, organization, etc. And Petra, would you mind introducing the outcomes?
Yeah, thank you. Regarding the intercultural classroom, I've already said something, but here I would like to focus on the outcomes and experiences of the teachers. In this digital era, and the fact that students and staff cannot travel to other universities and countries, this kind of teaching is inspiring, but also very challenging. The communication with colleagues at the other universities needs also to be incorporated in the awareness of that cultural differences are also in the collaboration process. Personally, I learned a lot in writing the article together with my colleagues in China and Sweden, views on world literature, cultural transfer and translation in the context of an online international exchange project. And in this article, we included material provided by a Dutch master student in Sweden as well. So this collaboration project was not only evaluated by the participating students, but also by a Chinese trainee, the Dutch and the Chinese assistants, and the Dutch master students in Sweden. The different perspectives gave us teachers more insights in our own learning and also way of supervising students. Okay, thank you. This was our part. I'm sorry we have 5 minutes left for discussion. I give the floor to Jager.
Jager, you muted yourself.
Sorry, you didn't hear me. We have received a number of questions in the chat. We have a few minutes left. Some of these questions in the chat have already been addressed. Let me just say a couple of things about very common aspects of virtual exchange. One is what tools are used. This is not very clear. And so especially e-learning people are always interested in, oh yeah, which tool are we going to use? But this is not very interesting for these projects because the tools are very different from one project to the next, and it depends very much on the partners. And this also makes it a real experience in digital literacy for the teachers involved. It is not just the regular tool which they use all the time. They have to select tools. And this also takes me to the other aspect. It is actually, as you have already probably seen, quite a lot of work for the teachers to organize these exchanges. And still Petra does this for, I think, the 4th time running. Although she is now retiring, we will have some problems convincing the next teacher to continue. It is very important to realize that virtual exchange is regarded by mobility officers as a cheaper alternative for physical mobility, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't come at cost. Actually, we find that teachers always have to prepare the exchanges every year again. So if we value them, we also have to reserve money for these exchanges and allocate some of the money that we now put in our mobility enterprises to put some of that aside also for teachers who can then have maybe an assistant to help them run and to develop the course. Very important because virtual exchange, I think you have seen from these experiences by the teachers, but also by the students, it really contributes to these skills like intercultural competence, digital competence. I think you can see that in which ways it has done through these presentations. So it really helps foster these competences. But yeah, we need to provide proper conditions for staff to actually start on these. I'm inviting maybe some of the other colleagues to comment on some other aspects mentioned in the chat, or maybe there's an additional question. So if you raise your hand and I can see you, well, that's also a bit of a challenge because we have five different screens. But so if you raise your hand, you can also ask the question. But so is there another colleague who would like to comment on? There were a few questions about the Spanish exchange, for instance, Gerdientje and Cristina.
Yes, I think we already answered a couple of these in the chats. It was about whether we have also plenary sessions.
Yeah, but the only plenary session was the debate. This activity that we do during is compulsory. So during our Spanish courses, they have to do 3 debates where they choose. Sometimes there is one debate that they don't choose the topic, but the other 2 topics they choose what they want to talk about. So if it is some related to political situation or topics that they matter. So this was part of one of these debates that they have to do. So this was our plenary session where they received feedback from the other members of the group. So, and they share this information with the group, their team, with Valencia.
Maybe I can add to that. So there's a lot of mistakes are related to the fact that teachers think that they have to organize the classes at the same time, and this is almost impossible to do, which is not something that we recommend. There has to be personal rapport building between the students. So there has to be small groups who are responsible for projects themselves. So we're now thinking of these challenges in the context of ENLIGHT. So we have to have these students working on these global problems from different disciplines. And so it's not only the language students who are represented in this group, but we also have projects in spatial sciences, in social studies to do with childcare, and in all kinds of different areas where students work together through the language using these tools to solve the problems from these different perspectives. So we can have a lawyer working with someone in social services on problems of immigration. So that is where we should be heading, I think, also with the new projects in the context of ENLIGHT, where we have to work together to see. But it doesn't have to be in all courses. We have to be selective. We have to build great projects.